Hi guys and welcome to the Angry Microwave podcast. Today's edition is a spoiler review of Captain America Civil War. With us today we have Dan and Callum. How are you guys?
I'm good,
Good, thanks. Yeah, good,
See, we
thanks.
spoke at the same time, but
Oh.
let's carry on.
As a host I can only apologise. So I mean, as it's a spoiler cast, there's no point of really going through the plot and being shy about it. What did we like and what didn't we like? Dan, we'll start with you.
Well, starting out with what really liked has to be, I think, top of everyone's list is Spider-Man. Really, I think everyone
Spider-Man was
enjoyed,
incredible. I
everyone
really
enjoyed Tom
Spider-Man.
Holland's Spider-Man. It's definitely the best casting they've ever done as Spider-Man.
Yes.
And I was saying to Callum before the start of this podcast that Sony are probably kicking themselves now that like the first time they give it to Marvel and they cast the best Spider-Man, says they're probably not best pleased with that. But I think
You'd be kicking yourself if your next film was going to make hundreds of millions now.
No, I was going to say I don't think they're kicking themselves. I think they're giving Kevin Feige a blowjob.
Well, I think they can already tell that in the distant future, after like at least one other film, one solo film, that they're going to like ask to buy the rights out like purely for like $1 billion or something, and that they will do it because there's like no other point in them keeping it. Like, they're not going to make the same money that Marvel does out of one superhero.
What I loved about it was that because we'll talk about the post-credit scenes in detail later, but the last post-credit scene is Spider-Man, and then it cuts to black and says Spider-Man will return, and then after that it cuts to the Marvel Studio sign, and I just feel like that's a massive, you know, we own comic book movie.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about Spider-Man, Callum, what do you think of the edition?
Well, I love Spider-Man. He was brilliant. I mean, like Tom Holland played him down to a key. Like, I wasn't really too sure how young they were going to go, but I think they like nailed it to a point. I mean, the humour's brilliant, and that Robert Downey Jr. relationship, well, Iron Man relationship, because he virtually is Iron Man in real life. I think that absolutely works so well between those two.
Yeah.
For me, those were the best scenes in the film. The dynamic between Peter Parker and Tony Stark. I thought that was really well done, and I'm looking forward to seeing him pop up in the Spider-Man standalone.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be very much like a sort of mentor figure in that film. I think very much sort of like giving him lots of the sort of new tech and like developing his suit more and making him like a better superhero as a sort of almost like a sort of pseudo father figure sort of character.
I couldn't stop grinning when those two were speaking at all. I couldn't stop grinning the whole time they're on screen.
Yeah.
It was just a great dynamic, and I love the relationship they had. Some of the complaints that I've heard from people was that they didn't really like how Spider-Man was introduced. And it's like, well, to be honest, not everything needed an origin story.
No.
It was a case of Tony Stark knew that Spider-Man was a thing, and maybe he could help out. And, you know, I just think it was really well done. Even down to, you know, I think you should go home, kid. You know, where he sends Spider-Man out of it. Blatantly just for script reasons. But I mean, it worked because he saw that you know, Peter Parker was hurt and in a bad way, and he didn't want to do any more damage to a young lad. And I think that works.
The thing is, I was really concerned that when it was first announced that Spider-Man was brought, like it was literally like a month before they started filming. But like clearly, like that deal was must have been in the works for ages because it worked so well for the time he was in it. Like he was in it for a good like 20-30 minutes, which is probably way longer than we originally expected. And I mean, like everything was justified, and he fitted in perfectly throughout the whole thing. So like, I was very impressed. Like screenplay wise, he fitted in completely well for me, and it wasn't jarring when he went away. Like it wasn't jarring at all for me. Like I thought the whole thing was perfect, and it wasn't too much. But it was not too little in any way at all.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that the film does really well. That a lot of previous superhero films have really fell down on is introducing new characters. Like you think about the X-Men films. The X-Men films always struggle with that. It's just like introducing new mutants really badly, just sort of like dropping them in. Like suddenly they appear out of nowhere. They weren't here before, but they are here now. And it's like, but both Spider-Man and Black Panther, I think, were introduced really quite well. I think they were sort of built into the story quite nicely.
And also, like Spider-Man's like in the perfect place now. Like 6 months in now, he's been Spider-Man. Like which is hardly anything. Like his first time in a proper suit, and it was kind of like this like little fun like vigilante where he was only doing the small things. So it's not really like in Superman where Batman was like destroying absolutely everyone and saving like these huge things. Like it was literally just like saving like people from a few car crashes and stuff. Like it wasn't over the top. which I think
Yeah,
was
I think
perfect to
they've
bring him
shown
in.
that he's bringing like a new flavour to the superhero characters, because they even make the joke in that fight scene that he's making lots of jokes, and he's saying like there's usually a lot less talking in these fight scenes. Like Anthony Mackie makes that joke to him, and it's like, I think that's what makes him interesting, is that he's a much more sort of humorous and talkative character than like the more serious sort of edge that they've brought to a lot of the other Marvel characters.
Absolutely. And what did you think of the addition of Aunt May and her age? I've heard people complain about that, but to be honest, I don't really think that's much of an issue.
No, I don't think
that's
so.
very
Like,
much
if you make
thing.
Spider-Man younger, then obviously Aunt May's going to be younger. That kind of just makes sense. Like, like
Yeah.
it would be like, just because like she's called Aunt May doesn't mean she's old. Like, that's
And I'm glad they didn't do the whole Uncle Ben thing and make sure of that, because we've seen it quite literally multiple times in the last decade. So we just don't need to see it again. But while we're talking about the new additions, what do we think of the addition of Black Panther? Do you think he added anything?
Meh. I mean, for me, he was fine. I wasn't really. It wasn't over. It just fitted in with the film, which is kind of like, I think Spider-Man kind of stole the spotlight quite a bit in that film about new characters. Like, everyone was talking about Spider-Man and not really Black Panther. I mean, like his motive was kind of there, and his backstory was kind of like cool. Like him being like around his land all the time, existing in his own little area, was kind of a cool way to, again, like, not do a full origin story.
Yeah.
Like, could have been like Green Goblin, kind of like, you killed my dad, like in the old Spider-Man's. Like, so it wasn't like that, which is great. It worked fine. Is pretty cool, kind of believable backstory. Good. It was okay for me.
I did like the fact that he sort of slowly like sort of came into the end of the film, that he becomes sort of the sort of moral centre of the end of the film, when he has that sort of standoff with Zemo's character about sort of that they're all fighting against each other, and he says that like redemption is better than mercy is better than getting revenge, sort of thing. And I thought that was an interesting way to have his character in the film as the sort of central sort of mercy of the film.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was watching it, about 3/4 of the way through, I thought, okay, he's kind of similar to Quicksilver. Well, he's going to be what Quicksilver was to Age of Ultron, in that he's a cool character with a bit of padding. But I actually thought that his progression as a character was pretty decent, and I was invested, and I can't wait to see him again. Although the fact that he does have a suit that's pretty much impenetrable is I think going to wear a bit thin. But no, I thought that as a character it's a decent intro. But let's get to the main parts of the story. Callum, I saw quite a few tweets and Facebook statuses about how you liked half of the film and not so much the other half. Could you explain a little bit about what you're chatting about? Because I feel the same way. I didn't like the first half of the film, but I'm not sure if that's the same with you.
So for me, like the half I didn't like was all the Bucky bit. Like, it felt so deja vu to Captain America Winter Soldier. And the thing is, I saw this in a triple bill, which probably didn't help. Like, I saw Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then Civil War. So I don't think that really helped in this case. I mean, like, it worked as a trilogy, but every time it went back to the Winter Soldier, I was a bit like, oh, here we go again. And then, like, towards the end, like, where they mentioned like the 5 other Winter Soldiers, I was like, I was so relieved, like, when we didn't have to battle 5 more Winter Soldiers. It was such a sigh of relief. And like, and after the airport scene that we'll talk about in more detail in a minute, it was like, oh, let's go back to the story. It just seemed like like that's the bit I didn't really like that whole Winter Soldier thread. I mean, and also I'm kind of more invested with the Winter Soldier now, but I still wouldn't really care if he died. I would be like, oh, well, that's one problem solved. It just seems to be continuous problems, and the fact that he gets frozen again at the end is a bit like, oh, so we're gonna wait for this to all come around again. It's just like, I'm really uninvested, and I kind of wish that they had the balls to kill him off, because like imagine if Iron Man had killed like the Winter Soldier at the end and then properly pissed off Captain America. I mean, like, that would have been like a proper, like, good, but it just seems like they're keeping these characters for like future like backstories or for future films later on to bring out the closet. I mean, like, the Red Skull's eventually probably going to come back in because he never dies. It's just stuff like that, and they're archiving these characters for later films. and I kind of wish that they had the balls, kind of like with Quicksilver where they killed him off,
Yeah.
to like kill the Winter Soldier off, or just keep him alive, like make his whole progression throughout those films worthwhile. Because at the moment,
I think what
no
it
worthwhile
is
progression.
that Marvel is kind of pandering to its like extreme fan base, because they really love the Bucky Captain America like sort of relationship. There's like so much sort of fan stuff written about that, and people love those characters together, and so like they're really nervous about the idea of like getting rid of him, because they worry that like that will completely destroy the franchise if we and I think that's part of the reason why there was so little sort of jeopardy in this film. It felt like no one was like at threat of death. It didn't feel like, even when they were like fighting each other, it felt way too safe. It felt like no one was actually going to die. Even when we thought someone was going to die, they didn't die, and so it just felt everything was too sort of safe.
I think that goes back to what Callum was saying. I think that's partly because we've seen that before. Like, it really frustrated me when they turned Bucky into a villain again after uttering some words, and I was like, you just can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like, that's really frustrating. And I just don't think it needs to do that. I think if they focused on the whole Iron Man looks at him as being dangerous because of, he was the one who killed Iron Man's parents, which, by the way, I thought was a decent, a decent twist.
Although the whole time I was thinking, if only they were both called Martha, both his parents. I was like, would have been easy to finish that.
Oh, you know that name. But yeah, no, that was the main issue I had with the film, which is Bucky, which is a shame because I actually like the character. But I just don't like how they seem to be running out of ideas of what to do with him. If they're focused on, Iron Man thinks he's a bad guy, but Captain America knows that he's different now. It wasn't who his friend was back then. Then I think that would make a more interesting dynamic. And also it will have subtle underlinings of things like mental health and all that bollocks, right? I say all that bollocks. FYI, I've got mental health problems, just so people don't like complain about that. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that they missed an opportunity to really go into a subject that'll be new for Marvel, and I think it would be brave. But it doesn't have to be in your face. But I think that would be an interesting dynamic, and nothing really would have changed. And you wouldn't have to have Daniel Brühl in there because he was completely wasted.
It's just like you're so invested, like 2/3 films down the line, and they keep teasing this relationship. But then by the end of it, it's like, okay, let's go back and freeze you again until we need you for like the next film. It was just, like I'd rather them stop teasing me with it. And just you're so invested like through those films, and I've come to like that character. Is that like sending him away again was a big like fu to the audience for me. But
no, so what did you think of the overall kind of what we're talking about? What we didn't like about the plots? What are the key parts of the story that you did enjoy?
And for me, I mean, like the whole politics thing was pretty interesting, and it was kind of like exciting throughout to kind of see like where it would go. And like the main story thing that I liked, like in the marketing campaign, it was like Team Iron Man versus Captain America. But realistically, it wasn't really like it until the fight scene, and then even after the fight scene, it wasn't like that. So for me, like that really works well. Like not particularly knowing like who was like on whose side exactly. I mean, I really enjoyed that. It wasn't like these are those guys and these are those guys. It was literally like mixed, like for Scarlett Johansson's character and all that. So I really enjoyed that part. That you didn't really know who was on whose side exactly throughout the whole film.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a segue to talk about that incredible airport sequence, but I'm just going to jump straight into it. That for me is the best action sequence that we've had in any comic book movie ever, because you have all these characters, and unlike in the first Avengers where you get that shot and they're all kind of huddled round, it was a badass shot, but in this film it's just upped because the ante's there.
It was literally like playing with all your like action figures, like on an airplane set. It's exactly what it was like.
And I think they utilised every single character well, even Ant-Man, because I love Ant-Man in this film. Paul Rudd does an incredible job.
There was a fucking Star Wars reference in the Avengers Marvel film.
It's almost like Disney and Marvel. It's weird, that isn't it?
Just waiting for Han Solo to turn up now. It's going to be in the next one.
And but no, I just love the whole interactions, the dynamic that was in that scene. Spider-Man's fight, Iron Man. Just every single character was used incredibly. But I really like the dynamic between all the characters, like the individual fights. You felt like there were stakes there, um, and it felt like a final battle and a final fight, which is interesting because it wasn't like the last act of the film. Well, maybe it was the last act, but it certainly wasn't the end of the film.
And that's my problem.
And so you didn't like the final showdown?
No, I enjoyed it, but the thing is, like, the best like fight scene in the film was about 45 minutes before the film ended. So
Yeah.
like as soon as that airport scene was finished, it was like, okay, let's go back and finish the film. It just felt like that for me. But yeah, like the fight, like to go back to the fight scene, the whole thing was amazing. My one slight gripe about the film is that they seem to be using Scarlet Witch as an excuse to get out of any single fight. It's just like,
I love that.
I mean, like it's total superhero film, but it just seems like every time there's a fight that they can't get out of, let's get Scarlet Witch and she can use one of her powers to get out of it.
Which is why I absolutely loved I think it's the second scene of this film where she essentially accidentally kills dozens of people, because that makes her not want to that makes her have an internal conflict, and I really like that. And I think she's handled a lot better in this film. She's definitely more badass in this one. I feel like she's really taken the accent down a few notches.
That's my favourite thing out of Age of Ultron, their accents.
Yeah. But no, I just think all the characters were just handled incredibly, unfortunately, other than Bucky. But would you agree that this is Robert Downey Jr.'s best Iron Man performance since the first Iron Man?
Yes, because it's darker.
And I think that's what it's about, because people seem to be forgetting that Robert Downey Jr. can act. Like, he can do those conflicts. Like, one of my favourite scenes is him and Chris Evans sat down talking about what is essentially two pens. Like, it was just incredible, because that's what the Russos aren't afraid to do. They're not allowed to. They're not afraid to allow the drama to come out in certain scenes. What do you think of the pacing of the film? Because I thought it was actually well paced, if not a little too long.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it did begin to drag a bit, and I think that comes a bit from what you're saying about having that sort of anticlimactic fight scene sort of quite away from the end of the film. It did feel like, right, you've got to build up the energy again now, you've got to build up to the end. And like, I think really it could have ended much sooner after that fight scene and would have been a tighter and better film. I think that kind of dragged a bit, that end, because really the thing you could have really got rid of was that prison sequence where he visits the people that have been like locked up. I don't think that really has a huge importance to it, or it could have been done over the top of everything else as sort of like part of a montage or something to sort of tighten it up. It just felt like we didn't need to see that in full to get what they were talking about in that scene.
I mean, like, this film, like, normally I'm kind of opposed to part 1 and part 2. It's kind of like Infinity War is going to be. I feel like this film would have been like a lot better if it was kind of in 2 parts, but like the second film slightly shorter. Like, so you leave so basically, like, you lead up to the airport scene and you see the airport scene, and then the second film is the whole like resolution of that.
Yeah.
Because so I just think it's a bit odd, because it probably could have had like an extra hour of development if it got it into to explain all that politics and stuff. I mean, like, because the jail thing kind of comes out of nowhere for me. It's like, oh, they're in jail now, just sitting there.
Have any of you read the comic?
Yeah.
Civil War.
Yeah.
I feel like the prison in the film was there because it was like a throwback to the comic.
Yeah.
And I liked that, but I think for some people it wouldn't quite make sense from a story point of view, which I think is the case, as Callum has just said. So I don't know. Do you think there was enough in there for the hardcore comic readers that they can take away and be satisfied with it? Because for me, I feel like the best thing they could have done, they did do, which was put Captain America Civil War instead of just calling it Civil War, because it really isn't an all-out, all of Marvel's characters coming together. It really is a Captain America sequel, with most of the characters in there.
Mm. But I do think as well that like the calling it Captain America thing was a smart choice, but I also think that it's slightly counterintuitive that it's called that, and then I think most people would agree that you kind of start to side with Iron Man in a sense, because his argument seems to make a lot more sense than like sort of like Captain America just seems to come across more as like a whiny child when you say sort of like, but I want to do whatever I want sort of thing. Like it's like,
Right.
like I think everyone starts to sort of side more with Iron Man, but I think that's kind of the point, that you sort of, this is the end of that sort of three-parter of his story, and you're sort of being pushed away from him a bit, sort of saying like this is sort of moving on from the sort of Captain America attitude of sort of superheroes, and like this whole sort of approach needs to change, sort of thing.
I mean, like I'm kind of the opposite. I'm kind of glad to have the Captain America angle because it gave it guidance, and I think like this film could have suffered from that. I mean, like one of the reasons why Batman v Superman didn't really work is that there were three films equally trying to be told, like the Lex Luthor, the Batman and Superman film, all trying to be told, and kind of having that Captain America angle kind of like it kind of locked you to one character, and then seeing like Iron Man progress was kind of like an added bonus that I wasn't really expecting. So for like as a first time watching, I really appreciated like having that guidance, kind of like being attached to like Captain America, and then seeing Iron Man's journey kind of like from the outside, and then towards the end seeing it more and more developed.
Yeah, and I think it does leave it quite nicely open for like asking quite a lot of questions about where we're going to pick up from, sort of thing, because they're now sort of seem sort of happily uncoupled in a way. So I think they're happily sort of split apart, and like they like he sends the letter saying that like, if you call me, I will come, I will help, sort of thing. And so I'm guessing that's probably where they're going to pick up from with Infinity War. Will be sort of like something will go down, the phone will be rung, the bat phone will ring, they will pick it up, and the sort of Infinity War story will begin, sort of thing. But yeah,
if it was a bat phone, that'd be a nice plot twist.
yeah.
But so, what films do we have before Infinity War?
Doctor Strange, Guardians, and then back into Infinity War, I think.
And Black Panther as well.
Oh, and Black Panther.
So other than Black Panther, they don't need to worry about where Captain America is at, what Iron Man's doing, and all those, and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess where they ended it was fairly.
Yeah, I mean, possibly
decent,
Captain America could pop up in the Black Panther film, seeing as he's like living in his base now, living in his country. So there's a possibility that like he could sort of have some small cameo part in that film.
I would have preferred it if in Infinity War it started with Captain America breaking them out of prison. I would have preferred that. It just felt like just seeing that shot was like, okay, and they're all free to do their own thing again.
I mean, like the thing with the prison thing, like for me, like for non-comic book reader, it was just like, oh, so they did something slightly bad, so let's all go to prison. It was just like, yeah, to go back on that. But yeah, I'm not really sure like where they're gonna go in the next films, but I also don't think that they can't be in prison for what would be like 2 years, because it seems to be in real time. I mean that's way too long for these superheroes to be in a film, unless they all turn dark, which would be really cool. But it would never happen in a Marvel film.
Like, are you happy after seeing this? Are you happy that the Russos are directing the Infinity War films?
Oh, but by far,
yeah.
Because as much as I'm a Whedon fan, I do feel like he did drop the ball on with Age of Ultron.
I mean, like, and you kind of need those kind of like set directors kind of like carry the theme throughout. Like we're gonna have like 3 massive films by the same directors, all wanting the same thing throughout that arc, which is a brilliant thing to see. I mean, like you see those films like where they're different directors, and it often falls apart because it's not the same vision. So that's vision, get it, pun. But yeah. So it's perfect. I mean, they're brilliant directors. Well, it'll be 4 films altogether, like seeing their vision throughout, which is brilliant to see. Like in this massive world where, like directors like don't really do that many big budget films again and again and again because it's so tolling on them.
The only I can only think of a couple of directors that have done that. One is Michael Bay, but yeah, we'll just put that to one side. The other one, if you're talking about franchise that's kind of developed a story and a director's kind of grown with the franchise, is David Yates with, is it the last 4 or 5 Harry Potter films?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm happy for them to do it. In fact, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing. I'm I am willing to put my mortgage, because I don't have one, on Thanos appearing in Guardians. He's just got to, because we've now had how many films in are we to this Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Many.
On the spot question.
Was it 14?
And how much screen time has Thanos had?
Probably about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Not even that. I mean, I'm thinking about maybe 3-4 minutes. Because apart from the odd post-credit cameo, the only time that we've really seen him is in Guardians of the Galaxy. And I feel like they really need to make him feel like an overwhelming force. Because so far we're 14 films in. I don't know how many hours that is. What 28, 30 hours into this franchise. And we don't feel like Thanos is a threat. And if this is all leading up to those 2 films, there's only so much you can do in 4 hours worth of.
I think they want to have him feel quite malevolent almost. They want him to feel like he's present, he's there, and it could happen at any moment, sort of thing. That like he's just waiting for sort of the perfect time to sort of bring it crashing down on civilization.
So the thing I don't understand is that surely the thing about Thanos is that he's gonna have all the Infinity Stones. Yeah. The Vision is an Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
Because he's got it in his head. I believe. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He mentioned that, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
So between now and then, he needs to get the Vision. And I'm not really sure when he's going to do it or how he's going to do it, because like if they start Infinity War off like that, it seems like extra baggage that they haven't already explained for another film being put at the beginning of that film. For me,
right.
So I'm kind of interested in how they'll get the Vision. And also, I really like the Vision, so it'd be sad because surely if they take that stone out of him, then he's not the Vision anymore. So they're going to kill the Vision. Are they? I don't know.
I think that's why they were alluding to the fact that he's becoming more human and he's starting to develop emotions. Because maybe if they take that away from him, he can still be a character, even if it's not the one that we kind of love now. Although I have never laughed so hard at something that wasn't intentionally funny. Then when in the first shot of Vision in this film, he's wearing a fucking like jumper and jeans or whatever, and I have never laughed.
And he
so
floats
much
through a
in my
wall as
life.
well, which is just something really funny about that. So.
Yeah, but Paul Bettany does an incredible job, and I just feel like there needs to be more of a relationship between Vision and Iron Man, considering Vision is Jarvis, and in Age of Ultron, like. Tony Stark was pretty much heartbroken when he thought Jarvis had gone. So why is he not? Why is he only putting him on babysitting duties for?
I mean, like, I honestly like can't remember like a scene in that film where those two had like straight dialogue, like conversation.
Right. So we'll try and wrap things up unless you've got anything else to say.
Or should we go into the post-credit sequences?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Is that a response?
Yeah. Okay. So, before we wrap things up, let's talk about the post-credits sequence. I do not like the first one. The first one we get is completely unnecessary. In fact, it actually annoyed me.
Oh, really?
It really annoyed me. Well, it's Bucky saying, freeze me again. I don't want to turn bad or whatever. And it's like, we've literally spent 4 hours of screen time deciding whether you're good or bad, and you still don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, in fairness, I would have preferred them if they swapped them round, like how Spider-Man and then that one leaving at the end. But I mean, like, such a big decision like that shouldn't really be left in a post-credit scene. Like, if there'd be teasers rather than that's like a massive decision. I don't really need to be made.
Right. But they know now that everyone's staying for at least the first one.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, Dan? What do you think of the first one?
Yeah, again, I thought I liked that it sort of it preempted the whole Black Panther thing, that you got the sort of a little glimpse of what's to come from there. But yeah, also I think it's like you've said already, that it's dragging that Winter Soldier story, like, is getting so sort of like quagged down in the mud now. It's sort of becoming so repetitive, and I think like you say, it does seem like a sort of archiving of the character to sort of like bring it back for many times to come, sort of thing. And like I think that kind of spoiled that end, really.
Yeah, it left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. But then, obviously, we're rewarded for sitting through what feels like the longest
Yeah.
credit sequence, like in
I
history.
counted like about 12 visual effects companies in that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And also, Bradley, like working in the cinema, how annoying is it having Marvel having post-credit scenes? Is it quite
I
annoying?
tell you, it's really frustrating. 'Cause you're counting the people that come out, and you're like, okay, most people are leaving, but you realise they're only going for a wee, and then they're coming back again. It's like, right, okay. Although yesterday I actually I went to the front of the screen and told people to shut up because they were talking through the second credit sequence, and the film was still playing, and I was like, look, you're not here for a chatter. People actually are staying to watch this. So I just like shouting. But talking about the second credit sequence, that was obviously by far my favourite. But as I mentioned earlier, I do feel like it's a massive, from Marvel, middle finger saying we own you, But as long as I don't care if Sony are the ones that are funding or partly funding the next Spider-Man film, because with Kevin Feige's guidance and the fact you've got Iron Man in it, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it also preempted the closeness of that relationship, because I think it was supposed to sort of suggest that little like projection thing had been left there by Tony when he gave him the suit, that he sort of left the little sort of symbol thing, because obviously so early on he doesn't actually have any sort of logo or sort of characters or representation, so it's almost like he's sort of given that to him as a gift to say sort of like this is who you're going to become, this is the sort of character I'm going to turn you into.
Yeah, he wears the bloody swimming goggles, which I thought was hilarious. So what are your guys' final thoughts and rating for the film?
Well, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, it was solid. It was such a great film. There's so many amazing scenes. Kind of like with a slightly naff part of the film, it doesn't really work. But like, there's so much good in it that I can't really moan. And it's literally probably the best superhero film we've had since the Avengers. Like, as just like absolutely everything, like all toys, like playing with them on a giant airfield, was literally kind of like the most superhero scene I've ever seen in a film. So 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'd give it around an 8. I think it's good. I think there's the introduction of those new characters was great. I think the political stuff at the beginning was really good. Like I said, I thought it dragged on a bit, but also as well, I thought it lacked some real like threat. I didn't feel those characters were really in danger of each other. I thought like there was too much sort of, as they even reference in the film, pulling punches. I thought there was too much of that, so it felt too safe.
Okay, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Simply because some of the plot points really did bother me, because I feel like it was almost lazy storytelling, which is not representative of the film as a whole, because as a whole the film, I think, flows well. It's got great pacing, and it does further the cinematic universe. It's got some great new additions. In fact, and I'm really starting to like Hawkeye, which I was not saying that 2 films ago. So I'm really starting to like Hawkeye. Like the addition of Black Panther, Spider-Man, like I've said, Ant-Man's incredible. I love Paul Rudd. So yeah, but an 8 out of 10 because a few plot points annoy me. But we'll see if that changes when I see it again, because let's face it, I'm definitely going to see it a few more times. So, thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been our spoiler review. Guys, where can people find you on the line if they want to?
You can find me at Moorin, CMOORIN, or search Stanley Microwave anywhere. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube or iTunes, wherever you're listening or watching this.
And you can find me at Pornhub. So, thanks for joining us, guys, and we will see you soon. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
At Bradley_J_Evans.